belly on the celly when you going crazy.
Hi everybody and welcome back to yet another doll custom video. I want to start off by saying thank you to my lovely Instagram followers who helped fine-tune this doll by completing the various polls I had on my stories. And I also want to say how excited I am for Cyberpunk, and seeing it at E3 gave me that little bit of an extra push to complete the doll. Oh, and of course, the memes from the conference at E3 were fantastic. Keanu Reeves is such a wholesome man. But of course I digress, we're not here to talk about memes, we're here to customise a doll. So as usual, the first step is to prep the doll, and I wanted to change the skin colour of this doll by using the MSC and pastel method. I have previously tried using the acrylic method, and although I kind of like it, I used really cheap paints and the finish looks really messy, so I wanted to try something brand new. And I wanted to change this doll to be a sort of Latina character, so I wanted to give her this really nice olive skin. I sanded off Frankie's stitching on her arms and legs, and also chopped off the bolts sticking out of her neck. As I said, I wanted this doll to be Latina, but unfortunately she ended up looking more green than olive toned as I had originally intended, and no matter how many layers of pastel I did, the colour just wasn't building and it was just the wrong colour altogether. I don't really know what went wrong here. I think it might be because my pastels at this time of the custom were really cheap. They were just generic ones from Hobbycraft. I think I paid about £7 for them. So I think the saying goes, you buy cheap, you buy twice, because I ended up purchasing some Mungyo pastels, which is what some other doll customizers use, and oh my god, they are so good. So all in all, I think I ended up doing about 8 coats with this brand of pastels, and then I think I ended up all in all doing 11 coats after I bought the Mungyo pastels. 3 coats with the Mungyo pastels was enough for me to get the colour that I as best as it was going to get, basically. So after the body was done, I moved on to starting the face up. I wanted to give this doll a fairly androgynous, perhaps moody look, so nothing too feminine. I gave her some subtle eyeshadow using a brown pastel and shaped them to the best of my ability with a kneaded rubber.
Skin color on my neck, skin color on my neck, skin color on my neck, all the bitches on my neck, skinny, thick, tall, short.
And I've now fully invested in Pebeo acrylic paints. I was really impressed with their quality, so I gradually moved over my paints to that brand over time, rather than my cheap 99p B&M or Home Bargains paint, and the difference in quality is amazing. I started off with the face by painting the eye white, or the sclera as they're called, with watered down white acrylic, using my tiniest paintbrush and taking my time to get the shapes as even as possible. So it was a lot of back and forth, pushing the paints out, wiping them up to get the shape, but once I was happy with them, I let it dry and began to draw the eyelid and iris details using watercolour pencils. I noticed the neck area on the doll had cracked and peeled layers upon layers of MSC, and this is most likely because I didn't prep the head properly, and I did have the head on a thick pencil because it was easier to hold, so I sealed it up with a few layers of watered down Elmer's glue. Once I was happy with that, I moved back over to the acrylic paints to paint over the pencil, and I would have used the pencils in MSC, but the weather turned really bad in the UK and it was cold and wet for at least 2 weeks, maybe more, and I didn't have the luxury of time to wait for the weather to clear up, and I just decided to go ahead and use paints. And then it was time for my nemesis. Eyebrows. I cannot stress enough how much eyebrows stress me out. I can never get them right even the first 10 times I try. I think it takes me at least 30 attempts. These particular buggers took me a full hour just to get the basic shape. I was constantly rubbing out the pencil until I finally got the shape I wanted and slapped on some acrylic. I used my tiny brush to create some fine lines in her eyebrows. I dipped it in water and used the end of the watercolour pencil to get some pigment. One thing worth noting is that you should never dip your watercolour pencils in a pot of water. This can damage the pencils for further use, and it can also take a really long time to dry out. For the hair, I wanted to use some wool wefts, so I made some off camera using acrylic wool and Elmer's glue. I cut them into shape and began gluing them to the head. I knew I wanted the side of the head shaved, so I left that part to make way for some flocking later on. To make the hairstyle behave, I painted a thin layer of glue on the last weft, folded the hair over and pressed it down. The head was nearly done, and I wanted to add some cybernetic details to her left eye. This is something that has been showcased from Cyberpunk 2077, and it's the ability to mod yourself to have better vision or weapons built into your arms. I love this concept, like Facetune, but in real life, and also slightly dangerous. Once I had done the hair, I wanted to work on the clothes, and this is where I began to ask my Instagram followers questions on what I should do for the doll. It started off with asking if the doll should have shorts or a skirt, then what colour, and the community decided on black shorts. As you may or may not know, I hate making doll clothes. It is slowly growing on me though, but to be honest, it's always such a ball ache. I have been getting better recently though, if I do say so myself. I made this whole cute flower outfit from scratch, and by scratch I mean I picked apart some factory clothes, made the patterns, worked out the kinks, and then ended up making the outfit. So for this doll's clothes, I took to Instagram so that community can fine-tune the outfit for me, as I'm very indecisive. I also took my time to really work on a pattern rather than just going for it like I have done in the past. I also discovered making prototypes beforehand helped. Not only does it help you iron out issues with a pattern, if they're good enough, they're worth keeping for future outfits. I had a lot of fabric to choose from. It's mostly all fun pattern stuff, so I have some tropical things with toucans and flamingos and pineapples, and also some cat fabric, but ultimately decided on a black and red tartan-like fabric. Something I've learned from making doll clothes is that if you aren't using a machine to sew, you should probably go back and double sew your clothes. That way it looks better and it's more durable. For the shoes, my fiance helped me choose which ones to paint, and then I painted them black using acrylic paint. I did 2 coats of black paint, and then using a very fine paintbrush, I used some metallic silver paint to go over the buckle and stud details. I sealed them in using some Liquitex high gloss varnish, and I also did 2 coats of that. I wanted to give the outfit more pizzazz, so I used some puffy paint to add some stud-like details to the shorts. The only problem with this stuff is that it kept falling off after a while, so I used some glue to seal them on properly, and then I painted silver on the top of them. After purchasing some Mungyo soft pastels, I wanted to try again with changing the colour of the skin. As previously mentioned, I only did 3 coats extra, and I think it worked really well. Make sure you wear a respirator or filtration mask when spraying MSC, and make sure you're in a well ventilated area. It's worth noting here that I used probably 3/4 of a whole can of MSC for this one doll, so if you are going to do this pastel method, please make sure you have pastels that have got a really good pigment, otherwise you are going to go through a lot of MSC. Once I was happy with the colour of the skin, I wanted to give this doll some more tattoos. I had already done some hand and arm tattoos at this point, but I did unfortunately lose the footage for that part, which is mega annoying, but I wanted to do more anyway, so I made absolute sure to be careful with the footage this time round. I gave her some cybernetic inspired tattoos and also more flowers. They aren't really punk at all, let alone cyberpunk, but I wanted to experiment with drawing as it's a forte of art I've not done in recent years. And this foxglove is actually based off a tattoo I have myself, and I really wanted to add it here. I also coloured it in using some watercolour pencils, and both leg tattoos were made with just 2 coats of MSC. I did some last minute finishing touches off camera, and once those are done, I was happy with her and I declared her finished. I'm so pleased with how she turned out, even if she wasn't how I had originally planned her, but that's okay. You work around with what you have with doll customizing. And now that I have better pastels, I really want to do a more vibrant, colourful doll. Perhaps a Decora Key themed doll? I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions that I received from Instagram followers. So the first question is, what's your favourite type of style to do with your dolls? And I think I've done quite a variety so far, or at least I'd like to think so. I really enjoyed making Abigail Gold and even VL, although she was a struggle with the painted skin. I think trying different styles is my favourite thing at the moment, although I think a more cartoony style to my art is definitely my favourite thing. I watched doll customizing videos for about 1.5 years before I finally caved and decided to try it. I watched Delightful, Doll Motion, Hextian and the Doll Fairy, just to name a few. And my favourite doll artist is definitely Maria Lazar. She makes such beautiful and delicate looking dolls. And the contrast in styles between artists really intrigued me, and it still does to this day. And I've always been a creative soul, so I decided to try it, and I love the creative freedom. What are your future plans for dolls? This is an excellent question because I don't really have a definitive answer, other than the fact I have 2 collaboration swap dolls upcoming. One is a sweets or sugary snack themed doll, and that's hosted by Starless Sky Dolls on Instagram, and the other is a zodiac and horoscope collab, hosted by Stephanie's Custom Dolls, also on Instagram. Go and check them out. After these 2 collabs though, I have no definitive plans for a doll. However, during the creation of this video, Moonlight Jewel came out with a mini-me, and really like the idea, so I might make a mini-me doll. Where do you get your ideas for the dolls from? A few things really. Kevney was created because I have recently watched Hercules, VL because I've been playing The Witcher 3, Abigail Gold because I'm always interested and invested in steampunk, and Cell because of Cyberpunk 2077. Otherwise, it's just looking at artists' work, reading stories about mythical creatures, books, or sometimes delving into the back of my mind, as there's a lot of stuff in there. Thank you for watching, and if you want to follow any artists mentioned in the video, all their names are on screen now. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And if you want, follow my Instagram. I post quite frequently and often ask for opinions on my newest dolls. Once again, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!